Hey guys, it's Raven here, and I just wanted to get Denmark out to kind of complete my 3 Scandinavian deck building videos. That's the last one, the final one. I haven't reviewed it yet, and I just wanted to get started. I would say Denmark's probably the weakest of the 3 between them, Norway, and Sweden, but that said, they do get some interesting and unique units that I think really pull the nation as a whole along, and kind of allows them to have a fun play style and some kind of unique capabilities. And so I guess I'll just get right into it. To begin with, we have logistics. You see I take the Command Centurion, very affordable, 2 top armor, just generally a really nice survivable unit. And I also take the M113 Command. I would have taken the very cool looking Stabsdelingen, the Danish Command Infantry. The only problem is I would only take them if they could come in a lynx, and you see I have 0 out of 3 lynxes, so I just didn't have any room for them, unfortunately. Otherwise I would, but because I can't, I take the M113. For supply, I take the Jupiter, which is a very nice, very robust supply truck. An alternative is the Unimog, but it's not very good. They added this in the DLC. It's got very low supply. I really don't know why they bothered with it, to be honest. I take the Jupiter. I only take 1 card. You could take 2. You would get, I believe, 22 instead of just 11. I personally haven't found that I needed more than 11, but maybe you would, so that's certainly an option. And of course I take a fob. For infantry, start with I take the FKP, which is basically Danish frogmen. They're the Danish military equivalent of the U.S. Navy SEALs in terms of role and capabilities. In real world terms, not in game terms, because obviously in the game the Navy SEALs are Recon with a grenade launcher, and these guys certainly are not. What these guys are, however, is elite infantry. They're very powerful. They have a really good machine gun, the Mini-Me. They have the Carl Gustav M3. Long range, high accuracy, good AP. Definitely a nice unit. They come in this really nice looking lynx. Hats off to Eugen for making this. It looks very cool. And they're just all around pretty good. Incidentally, these guys are the reason I don't take Danish mechanized, which from memory, literally the only thing in Danish mechanized that you lose that's even concerning is the FKP, and then the elite recon troops as well, and that's kind of a big loss, so that's why I go with just regular Denmark instead of mechanized. And in general, you can really tell Denmark doesn't have very many transport options. They don't have any infantry fighting vehicles, they don't really have any fast transports either. You see I take the Livgarden here in the very well priced 2 side, 2 front armor M113 for only 5 points. And of course the Livgarden themselves, Livgarden 85 obviously. They do have the Charlie G M3, and it's very nice. They have the M3, which is also quite powerful. I just kind of wish they would get the CQC MG3. That would be fair. I think pretty much all shock infantry that have the MG3 have the close quarters variant, and there's no reason Livgarden shouldn't. It's just an artificial nerf in the name of flavor, or who knows why. But they're still pretty nice, and I certainly take them. And to round them out, I take the Dragoner, which definitely are not the best infantry, but for 10 points and a 5-point transport, they get an MG3. Pretty good for just filling up a forest or a town. They can do a lot of good work that way. And then to kind of round out the lineup, I take the LLRKT M93, which is essentially just a Stinger team. You see it's actually called a Stinger, their weapon there. Not the best range, but good accuracy, 5 HE, the coveted 5 HE. They kind of round out the Danish air defense network, I find. The only thing you could really take instead of them would be the Ildstottegruppe. Apologies to Denmark for... Anyways, I don't think this unit is very good. In general, I've talked about this before. The fire support units, for basically 15 points, you get a 5-man squad with the same AT weapon that, for example, the Livgarden have. Granted, it fires faster. Granted, it's a little more accurate, but I just, in a 5-slot deck, I don't think that this highly specialized unit really has a good place, so I avoid them. And I also avoid the Danish reservists because, for one, they're 10 points, which means they have the same price as line infantry. They have pretty much the same weapons, MG3, an inferior bazooka. Probably the only thing in the game worse than the Law is this likely World War II era anti-tank weapon. Their submachine gun isn't even that good. Yes, they're 15 men, but only with militia training. I think at best they're a side grade from the Dragoner, and I really just kind of find them as a meat shield that just is there to die and absorb hits, and they don't really do much on their own. I would rather have the Dragoner myself. Support, this is kind of where Denmark gets interesting. First of all, this unit is not interesting. This is the GMC M450, which is essentially a truck with 4 Brownings on the back, which Mad Matt, one of the developers, said was basically in the game, so it could provide a cheap, early-era, self-propelled anti-air gun, which means he's chirping on cheese and wine, because this thing is not going to be used as an anti-anything except maybe infantry in a forest, where it really should be as in the vehicle tab, like the South Koreans, because the South Koreans have the same unit and it's in their vehicle tab. This does not work in the support tab, it shouldn't be here. They have much better options, which we'll get to in a second, but just to start with my actual lineup, I take just the regular IHawk, kinda, it's just very workmanlike, 60 points, yes the 3 missiles, yes it's radar, but it's pretty accurate, really great HE. Kind of, it's more a backup AA piece for me because I actually mainly prefer the EOTS Hawk, which you can see it has 10% more accuracy than the regular IHawk, but its main advantage is you see it doesn't have the little R up here. It doesn't have the radar trait in its missile, even though the missiles are called radar missiles. That means that this thing cannot be hit by seed, and that is not a mistake, that is not a bug. This is actually an IHawk designed to be immune to those sort of countermeasures. So this is really nice because you don't have to micromanage its missiles off and on. The only thing you have to do is keep it supplied and maybe move it once in a while so it doesn't get artilleried. But overall, this EOTS is a really nice unit, very effective, really unique and great addition to Denmark. And to go along with that unique and great addition to Denmark is another great and unique addition, the automatic. You see this kind of looks like a tank with a high elevation gun and a radar on top. That's basically what it is. You see it's got this Odo Malara 76, which is actually a gun that you'll see on a lot of ships in this game. At least some variant of it, an Odo Malara something. And it's got really good accuracy, or I should say really good range against helicopters and airplanes. Good accuracy. 3 HE actually, that's huge. It only takes 4 shots to kill a plane. Or, a 10 HP unit like a plane. 60 rounds a minute, which is kind of low for a self-propelled anti-air gun. But what you have to remember is that a lot of, for example, the GMC, you see it's got this 1518 rate of fire, and that's not true. Like, it's not like it's actually putting out, 1,000 something HE per minute. That's kind of just an arbitrary number, whereas the 60 RM for the automatic is a rule. It literally fires once every second. And that means it only takes 4 seconds of a plane flying overhead to kill it. That's a pretty nice window for only one anti-aircraft unit to kill something, and it's just very powerful. And actually, its anti-vehicle and anti-ground range is pretty crazy too. It's got like a tank gun range, basically a tank's armor-piercing value and HE value with kinetic energy rounds, and it fires at like 6 times the rate of fire of even the best tanks. And this is pretty crazy. I think they're probably going to nerf the automatic, because it really is, I think, a little too good. Even when they nerf it, I think it'll still be a great unit, and right now it's just a little crazy. It's way too good against ground, probably a little too good against planes, but certainly a nice, unique unit for Denmark. Very neat. And let's see, for artillery I have just a regular old mortar. I love mortars, smoking, suppressing, just great all around unit. I think everybody needs to have mortars. And then of course you get a long gun. And really for Denmark there's two choices. There's the 50-point M109 and the 100-point M109. And I talk about this in my Norway deck because you have the exact same decision with the exact same two units. And basically if you take the 100-point M109 you get half, exactly half, 3 versus 6 or 4 versus 8, depending on your veterancy. Half of the 100 points M109 compared to the 50-point 109. You see they fire at the same rate of fire, they have the same suppression, the same high explosive value, basically the same armor, same stats, same everything. The only difference is that for 100 points, literally 50 more points, twice the cost, you get a little better dispersion, and of course better range. And I don't think that's even near worth it. I think 6 of the 50-point 109s will always kill more than 3 of the 100-point 109s firing in a tighter dispersion. I think just the oversaturation of the smaller ones firing a lot more for the same price is just so valuable. And yes, you'll be probably called an artillery spammer, but the 50-point M109 is just such a better value. So I would definitely take that, and I do in my Norwegian deck. And then going to Danish tanks, really I think, first of all we have the Leopard 1A5. This is really just a standard 60-point Leopard 1A5, just like the Germans get. I think basically the same as the Canadians. And of course Norway also has an equivalent of this. Very workmanlike. The Leopard ones used to be pretty crappy. Ever since Airland Battle they were just overpriced, underperforming. They just didn't work very well. And over the course of Red Dragon, they've really gotten a lot of nice buffs, and I think you can really be grateful for that, because now this is a really good kind of medium, low price tank. And unfortunately, it's probably the only really decent tank in the Danish lineup. Kind of after the Leopard 1A5, you have a choice between the Centurion, basically the best Centurion, and the second best Leopard, a Leopard 1A3. Neither is optimal. You see the Centurion's a little bit better armored, albeit slower, less autonomy. It does have a more powerful gun. Really, the only reason I have it is just kind of to bulk out my forces. In fact, I might even change this for the Leopard 1A3 now that I compare them side by side. I really don't even use either of them. I kind of just rely on the 1A5, but they're there in case. And certainly the Centurion 84mm for 9 front armor at a relatively affordable price. It can kind of just bulk out your forces and give something for your Leopard 1A5s to stand behind and plink away. Generally tanks are not Denmark's strength though. They're just there to support rather than be the main idea of your battle. Moving on to Recon, where Denmark actually does have some pretty nice options. You see I take the Spejrdern, which is just a very basic Recon infantry for Denmark. It's just there for looking at stuff, that's all it does, and it does that pretty well at a good price. And then I take the Jaeger 90, and this is why I did not have enough Lynxes for my command squad. Actually, the Jaeger 90 are really good. If you look at them, they're actually better than the FKP. They have the same machine gun, the same Charlie G M3. They actually get a submachine gun instead of an assault rifle, which I think is generally better in most situations. And then on top of that, they get very good instead of good stealth, and they also get very good optics instead of medium optics for the same price. Granted, less availability, but the Jaeger 90 are very good. Definitely worth taking 2 cards of them. And then for vehicles, I actually take the Spejdervågen M95, just probably just a Recon car. That probably means actually Recon car in Danish, I should say. Not totally sure on that, but for a Jeep, it's actually kind of a novelty. It's got 10 strength and 1 armor all around, which is a lot more powerful than most Jeeps, which only have 5 strength and 0 armor all around. So it's kind of a unique unit in that sense. That's why I take it. It probably has a little bit of an roll overlap with the Spejrdern, but that's fine. The only thing you could really take instead of it is one of these good optics tankettes or whatever, and I don't particularly like any of these. I don't think good optics are very good at all, really. I think there's such a jump between good to very good and then to exceptional that the good optics vehicles just don't seem enough to really justify their inclusion. So I don't take these. I do take the Cayuse Recon helicopter though, which does a good job. Vehicles, Denmark doesn't have just too much to choose from. You have the M95 PNMK, which used to be the Danish infantry fighting vehicle, and they decided to move it to vehicles for whatever reason. And whatever, it's somewhat armored, it's got a somewhat decent autocannon. In terms of fire support and forest and such, why not? I have points to spare, so I took it. And then for, I should say, ATGM vehicles, I actually have some interesting choices. Here's the M113 TOW 2, which, as I said in my Norway video, I think it's overpriced. 70 points is just too much to pay for something like this, even though, yes, it does have a really nice TOW 2. Yes, it does have 8 of them. But it's just, these units die too easy. They have 0 top armor, so they get mortared and killed really easy. They shoot their missile, they get shot by whatever they're shooting at, and they die. It's just way, way too much to pay for these things. I actually take the Laro TOW 2 instead, which if you look at it, it's a little bit more than half the cost, but it's much faster, much more affordable, obviously. Same missile, only 2 less missiles. Most missile jeeps only have 4 missiles, this one has 6, so the Laro TOW 2 is a pretty good value, I think. Definitely a good addition. I would probably even take the Laro recoilless rifle if I could, I just don't really have the points for it. This is kind of an interesting unit, though. And then helicopters. I take the Fennec TOW 2, which has those same powerful anti-tank missiles. It's really good for deterring and killing tanks. No, it's not the best, but it's really the best Denmark, or even Scandinavia as a whole, has. And to complement it, I take the Fennec 20mm, which also is not the best, but it's literally the closest thing to a gunship that the entire coalition gets. I guess, for whatever reason, Scandinavian people don't like helicopters, because they apparently don't have too many. Its autocannons are actually pretty good. It's just, like all helicopters that don't have the ball-mounted weaponry, they have to do this kind of dance where they orient themselves to face directly head-on to whatever they're shooting at. And that takes a lot of valuable time, and for such a kind of weak and easy-to-kill helicopter, that's really gets them killed a lot. But I think if you can have them in a situation where maybe they're floating above an infantry squad, firing to help it, and there's no AA around, or just maybe hunting down recon troops if you find some infiltrating behind your lines, these guys do okay work. Not the best part of the deck, but yeah, it's interesting to try them out, and once in a while you do get some use out of them. Just in terms of planes, Denmark actually has a surprisingly strong air force, and some unique units too. To begin with, I take the just regular old ASF, added in like DLC 1 for air-land battle a whole long time ago. It's not great, it only has 2 of each type of missile, but I find it actually gets the job done pretty well at a very affordable price. Can certainly kill enemy ASFs, though I find it's usually better off going after the bombers and interdicting those. To complement it, I have the F-16A MLU, and this was added in the DLC, and it's actually one of, I think, only 3 true multi-roles in the game. What I mean by that is, rather than Sidewinders, they have these AMRAAMs, long range, high accuracy, 5HE. These can actually go up against enemy fighters and kill them, or certainly intercept enemy bombers. And on top of that, they have these anti-tank Mavericks, which don't have that great of AP, but they do have 4 of them. Generally a very nice multi-role plane, good ECM. I really like it, definitely a great addition to the deck, and you get 3 of them per card. And then to round out the lineup, I take the F-35 Draken. It's a bomber. 6 500 kilogram bombs, 30% ECM, I think also a very good value. And then I have the F-100D, which is just, these rockets are really good. 76 rockets, 3 HE a pop. Yes, it is kind of slow. Yes, it does have no ECM, but very affordable, and you can really use these to kill infantry, kill light targets. For example, a 100-point Tunguska you send one of these at it, and chances are you'll get away, but even if you don't, you've traded a 65-point plane for a 100-point enemy AA piece, and you each have 5 in your deck, so why not? Generally a pretty nice unit. I do have some complaints for Denmark era, though, and chief among these, I think this is a great example of why Eugen balances on coalitions and not national, despite what the developer Mad Matt might claim. You see Denmark has this old F-16 block from Airland Battle, and there were suggestions before the DLC was released to give this unit a seed missile and make it like a multi-role seed aircraft, kind of like the USA Wild Weasel. And for one reason or another, Eugen decided it wasn't worth the trouble. They didn't do it. And Denmark really could have benefited from this because just they have this really powerful close air support lineup and they don't have a seed plane to protect it. So instead we have this F-16A Block 5, which as you see has a ton of overlap with the new Draken. Kind of similar bomb loadout in terms of weight of fire. Just very similar planes, and there's no, unless you just want a lot of bombers, there's no reason to take both. They're just so redundant, so I take the Draken. And it really would have given Denmark a great capability just to switch these damn bombs for a couple seed missiles, and they just didn't do it. And that's a shame, and I hope maybe we can lobby for them to make that change. I probably wouldn't count on that, but if you like Denmark, I would definitely post about that on the forums. You see Denmark, they also have the Starfighter with 4 napalm bombs, no ECM. You can get away with this in Norway, but I think no seed to escort these. They're just 80-point fire puffs. I don't think these are worth it. And of course they get this really, really, really terrible air superiority fighter, which isn't even worth mentioning. But those Starfighters aside, and the lack of seed aside, Denmark really does have a pretty good air force. Very worthy of a minor nation, and yeah, overall, I think it's, like I said, I think it's the weakest of the 3 Scandinavian nations, but they are a lot of fun to play. I've certainly enjoyed them. My friend NATO Potato has become a raving Danish fanboy, and if you told him 2 weeks ago, he probably would have said you were crazy if you told him he would become a Danish fanboy, and I would have said you were crazy too, but they have a lot of neat units, like the Automatic, the Eots Hawk, the Jaegers, FKP. Definitely worth a few plays. I know a lot of people kind of shy away from miners and maybe go more towards the Eurocorps and the Eastern Bloc stuff, and I don't really have time for coalitions. I don't like the, a little bit of everything and having the best deck. I like playing the miners and having the flavor and role-playing a little bit, and Denmark won't be the easiest nation to play, but I think it is rewarding when you can pull it off, and certainly in team games I think it has a good place. Its support options are powerful, its recon options are powerful. You can really give your allies some capabilities and let them focus on maybe more of the stuff Denmark doesn't have, like the heavy tanks and so forth. So anyways, I think that's about all we have for today. So as always, thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, and everything else. And yeah, I think that's it. So thanks again for watching, and this is Raven signing off.